Hello and welcome back to another video tutorial with Chlo. Hi, I'm Chlo. This is Chlo's Craft Closet, coming to you from the mid-north coast, Australia, little sleepy town called Port Macquarie. And today I am sharing a card from the new stamp set, well, new to me and new in this year's annual catalogue, called A Good Man. Now, with Father's Day just around the corner, here in Australia anyway, I think the US may have already had it and so has the UK, but I am getting a class together, and this is one of the cards that we will be making from the set. So I'm using one of our new in colours, which is the Pretty Peacock, and it is so good. It's such a beautiful card, and it's really rich, and I absolutely love it. I like it much more than I thought I would, so that's always a plus. Okay, so I'm actually going to do a variation of this card. Like I said, this is my class card, but I decided that I wanted to make another card to send out to a family member. So I'm going to make another card, but I'm just going to change up the colours a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm using the colours that I colour my image in with to dictate my cardstock colours. Okay, so let's get started. Let's cut some cardstock first, shall we? Oh, I'll put that over there. So today I'm going to be using basic grey in exchange for our Pretty Peacock. I'm going to use a strip of Old Olive instead of the Pool Party, and I'm going to use a little bit of orange on my sentiment banner, but I'm still going to keep my cardstock base black. I think that's the best one for these colours, and obviously I need a piece of white to stamp and colour in my image. So I shall bring my trusty trimmer up, good old trusty, and bring them along. Now the measurements can be found as always on my blog at Chlo's Craft Closet, so head on over there and you'll get all the measurements. They're all written down for you. Let's bring out my arm. Okay, so my card base is usual card base size for me. For those who have watched my videos before will know I cut at 11.5 and then turn it around and cut at 4 inches. We are actually going to keep this strip, so don't throw that away. We're going to use that because that's what we're going to use for our sentiment. And then I'm scoring it at 3 3/4, which is obviously half of 11.5. And that's our card base done. Okay, so I'm going to double mat my basic grey. So the first cut is going to be 3 3/4 by 5.5. Like that. And then I want a slightly smaller version, so I'm going to drop it down 1/8 of an inch. So then my second base is 5 3/8 by 3 5/8. So you'll see that that's just 1/8 smaller either side. Oh, can't get that little bit out. And if I bring these two together, you can see that they have a very slight border, not too much. Now this front one will be a little bit smaller again because we're going to run it through the big shot, so it will get a little bit smaller again as the paper gets tighter, but it won't affect the overall look, so that's a fine cut. Okay, so then we need a strip. I'm going to use Old Olive for this one, and my Old Olive strip is going to be 1.5 inches wide. Oh, straighten her up. Let me make sure that's 1.5. Yep, there you go, that looks better. 1.5 inches wide, and we're going to cut it the same length as what this base was. So that was 3 5/8, because we want it to run. Oh no, hang on. Oh, almost made a mistake. I mean, it's supposed to be 5 3/8 because we want it to run the length of our cardstock. Oh, that was close, wasn't it? I almost cut it the wrong way around. Almost cut it that way. Okay. All right, so that's that. That's that. And then lastly, we'll bring back our our pumpkin pie, in your eye pumpkin pie. And we only want a skinny, mini, teeny tiny edge. This is just to give that black sentiment a little bit of pop. So I'm literally going to cut it. Well, really, all I want is about 1/4 of an inch wide. That's it. Not very wide at all. 1/4 of an inch. And then I'm going to rotate it around, and I want it the same length as the sentiment, which this time is 3 5/8, because the sentiment is going to go all the way along the length. So 3 5/8. So that is our little skinny mini strip. So we can get rid of that one now. And last but not least is that little bit of black offcut. Now, I'm not sure what size that black was that I cut to start with, so you might not get an offcut that's identical, that's perfect. That could just be me that's lucky to do that. So this needs to be 3 3/4. Oh, look at that. 3 3/4 it is. Sorry, not 3 3/4, just 3/4. 3/4, no 3. 3/4, and then it's 3 5/8. Like I said, if I've completely confused you, which I understand because that's the way I am, all these measurements will be up on my blog, so don't pressure yourself about writing them all down and remembering them. Okay, so that's all our cutting that we need for that kit. So I'm going to put my trimmer away, and I'm just going to tidy up all these scrap bits that we don't currently need and put those to one side so I don't accidentally stamp on them. Alrighty, so these are our pieces. So you should have 1 base, 2 pieces of basic grey, a strip of old olive, a black sentiment strip, and then a little strip of pumpkin pie, which is what's going to fit under there like that, just to give it a little bit of a pop. Okay, so the first thing we might do is do some stamping and some colouring. So I've got a little bit of Whisper White here, and I'm going to get my Memento ink. So when you're colouring with the alcohol blends, you want to use a water-based ink. Now, all of Stampin' Up's inks, coloured inks, are water-based, so you can use any of those colours if you want to. But if you're looking for black, then Memento's the way you go. You don't want to use Stays On because Stays On is alcohol, and the blends are alcohol, so too much alcohol is bad for you. That's how I always remember, though it's not technically true. But in this case, we're going to say it is. And then my blends choices today, here we go. Oh, so many colours. I will run through them, and again, they will be up on the blog. We are going to do the light and dark combo of grey granite. We are going to do, where is it? That must be it. Yes, light and dark petal pink. We are going to do light and dark granny apple green. We are going to do light crumb cake and then ivory. We're going to use those two. They're going to sort of be little floaters on their own. They're going to be adding a bit of detail. I've got the light So Saffron here. We're going to do light and dark pumpkin pie. And lastly, we are going to do light Seaside Spray and light Night of Navy. I'm just trying to think. Sorry, dark Seaside Spray, light Night of Navy. I thought that wasn't right. So dark Seaside Spray and light Night of Navy. And those two, as you can see, go really nice as a new combo versus light and dark Night of Navy, light and dark Sea Spray. God, that's a tongue twister. And as I say all the time, don't be scared to swap around your colours. You know, you don't always have to put the light and darks together. I quite like these two together, and I think they add another contrast, another layer to that Night of Navy, which I find is quite dark. So adding these two together seems to be the perfect match. Okay, so those are all our blends. Push those together. And first what we're going to do is stamp up, or actually, the first thing we're going to do is get our stamp out. Now, this stamp is absolutely beautiful. I mean, it's so hard to find good guy stamps and good guy cards. And you know, golf, boats, fishing. That's great if your husband or father is into those three things. My husband isn't. In fact, this is him right here, hat on, in a sun deck, fast asleep. That is my husband. That is my kid's father. So this will be one of the cards, the stamps they use from one of their cards for Father's Day. That is for sure. But we are going to go with this one with the little boy on his shoulders. Now, this is a little tip. I've mounted all my stamps with their stickers, but I find that if I put them in here, they're okay to start with, but after a while they get really, really super duper sticky. So what I do is I actually put them back on their transfer sheet, and that way they're so much easier to pick up, and also you know if you've got one missing, so you can pick one up and you know straight away there's one missing in that stamp set. So that's just a little top tip from Chlo. Alrighty, so we are just going to mount him up on there. And I might bring... Now, if you find when you use your Memento that he's a bit patchy, I think because it's hollow here, you don't have any pressure there, and you stamp in the middle, it sort of bows a little bit. So I find if I flip him over and hold my finger in the middle, I can put some even pressure all over that way. And then that way your totally and utterly covered. Obviously with the Stampin' Up! Ink pads, they've got a solid base, so you don't have that problem. All right, and all we're going to do is we're just going to stamp him on there. And there you go. There's that beautiful stamp. Isn't that gorgeous? Absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so stamp pad and stamp we'll put away, and then we're going to come in and do a little bit of colouring. I'll zoom in a little bit, and hopefully if I move you down, there you go, move you down a bit. Hopefully that will help you be able to see what I'm doing, and it will also prevent me from sticking my giant head in the way of the camera, which I am prone to do. Okay, so we might start with colouring in his, I'm just making sure I've got all my bits and pieces, colouring in his shirt. So I think I might use the Granny Apple Green on that. And as always, what I'm going to do is I'm going to layer a bit of the green first, the light shade first. Now, the good thing about these stamps is if you're having trouble knowing when it comes to adding your details and everything, where to add that darker shade, you know, where the sun's sitting and where you should be, these stamps are really good, because what we're going to do is see all these lines here. We're going to use those as our guide to where we're going to add our shadow, because obviously they are supposed to be, wrinkles, aren't they? Wrinkles in the clothes. So I'm going to use my dark, and I'm just going to use these lines as where I would think there'd be shadow. So obviously I'm just going to draw over the top of all of those. There's a little boy sitting on his shoulder, so I'm guessing he would cast a shadow, and there'd be a shadow probably just under his armpits, and then maybe, you know, down here in the bottom there where it's a bit scruffy, and I might do another one there on that armpit. And that's all I'm going to do for that. So I'm going to put my lid back on, and now I'm just going to go back over those lines, and I'm just going to blend that in a little bit and add a little bit more. So I want to keep this main part fairly normal. I don't want to add any more colour to that, but I'm just going to sort of thicken up these lines that we've already added in. So I'm going over the lines that I added in the dark, and I'm just thickening it up and going over and a little bit more, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to blend those in there, keep going over until I get, and it will dry darker. Remember, we have this panic that it's going to, you know, be this obvious, but it does dry darker. So, okay, I think that's it. I think that's all I need to do. Just wondering, is that a bit of t-shirt? Maybe. I've added it in. It's going to be t-shirt now. Okay, so that is us done for his t-shirt. So I can put my Granny Apple Green away, and then I'm going to come back in and I'm going to add, trying to think, shall I add blue jeans, or shall I add, I might add grey granite. Might do grey granite jeans this time, and I might add blue to the little boy. All right, so again, I'm going to come in with my, just double checking, my light, and I'm going to just add that all over. Now this one's a bit, if you can hear, it's a bit sort of squeaky. It's because it's a fairly new one, and so it hasn't had as much use, so it's a little bit sort of harder than the tips on my very super duper used ones. So once you sort of use them a little bit, they do sort of soften and not make that sort of horrible squeaky sound, which is really not nice. Now he obviously doesn't have a bottom leg, so it's just a matter of, you know, adding a little bit in and, you know, a bit of guesstimating, I suppose, on where his trousers would go. And the same again with this detail. He's obviously going to have detail on his back because that's going to be his t-shirt. Pockets, so I'm just going to go over those lines, and he's obviously got a few folds, so I'm going to put a few bits in there, and I'm also going to add a little bit of detail there because that would be a shadow from his other leg, and it looks like there's a bit of detail here, so I'm just going to add that in as well. Okay, do I want to add a bit over here? No, I think I won't. I can always come back if I want to, remember? You can always add more, you just can't take it away afterwards. And so again, I'm going to just go over those lines that I've already coloured and then go out a little bit more. So over the lines I've coloured with the dark, and I'm just going to thicken it up now with the light to blend those colours out. So over the dark and thicken it up by sending it out a little bit more. There we go. And if I'm going to add just a little bit that lighter shade, so it's not a dark colour, but it just sort of highlights that a little bit more of that third shade of the light shade. Okay, so that's his pants. So let's move along so we can get rid of him now. Let's move along. What colours have we got left to use? Okay, so I might use the blues on this little boy's pair of, I'm going to say he's got jeans on. So I'm just going to add a little bit of blue there, a little bit of blue through here. Gentle, gentle, gentle to get that seam. And then again with the dark, I'm probably going to make this bit a bit darker because obviously it's in shadow. And I think I'll just add a little bit along there like that. There we go. And I'm only going to obviously blend out this bit here. There's not really much to it, but there you go. So I've just blended that little bit out there. All right, so that's our blue done. And last but not least, I think what we'll do is we'll get our oranges in and we will do his t-shirt in the pumpkin pie. So again, I use the fine tip a lot. I find it's easier to control. But if you have a really big space, you obviously can use the broad tip, the brush tip. But I like the bullet tip, the fine tip. All right, and again, I'm just going to go over all of this. He's got a little bit on his collar, so we'll just tidy that up there. And then we'll... Somebody asked me, do they smell really strong? Because obviously being alcohol markers, are they super smelly? The answer is no, not at all. I think my Calypso Coral, but I think it's got a funny smell. I don't think it's a normal smell. I'm not sure if it's the colour or I've just got a strange one. But yeah, my Calypso Coral's got a bit of a funny smell, but the others don't seem to be too bad, so you should be fine. Okay, I'm just going to go back over these. And again, we're just adding the colour in on those lines and where we think there might be a little bit of colour. I'm going to pop a bit up there. Okay, I think that's it for the orange or the dark pumpkin pie. I'm just going to blend those out now. So this stamp is really good for first timers because it's an arty stamp, so it's not supposed to be, you know, absolutely spot on. You don't have to worry too much about staying in the lines or you know, getting the exact colour in the exact place, but you know, it's quite forgiving, so it's a really good way to start. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, my husband is a Pom, he's a Brit, so we are going to give him lily white skin because it doesn't matter what he does, he cannot turn up. So obviously depending on your nationality will depend on what colour you want to colour them in, but we have the bronzes, we have the browns, we have some cream tones, so you know, you can mix and match and hopefully you can get a tone close to what you're after. All right, so I've done the light petal pink, and I don't think I'll use the dark petal pink. I think I'm going to do ivory as my colour for blending. So I'm going to add a little bit on his elbow, a little bit where his t-shirt would sit, and I might just put a little bit on that hand there, and the same here, a bit on his elbow, and then a bit where his t-shirt's sort of sitting. And then I'm going to just come back and I'm just going to blend that out. Blend those bits out a little bit so they don't look like dirty marks. Maybe he hasn't washed in a while. And blend that one out there. And I don't think I'll add anything to the little boy. I think I might just leave him like that. And now for hair, I'm going to think of my little boy Drew, and those who know him will know that he's an extreme little fair child. He's very blonde, so saffron goes in perfect for that. And I'm going to add some, because he obviously doesn't have yellow hair, although it's close, I'm going to add a little bit of the light crumb just to sort of take that real sort of blondie shade out and just make it look a little bit more natural. And then I'm going back in with the yellow again to try and, you know, blend that out. And there you go. That is my little person, my little man. Now, we do not have dies for this, so if you're lucky like myself and you have a scan and cut, you could run that through the scan and cut him out. But otherwise, it's fussy cutting time, guys. So we've got a pair of scissors, and I'm just going to fussy cut him out. I always leave a white edge when I'm fussy cutting because I find that it looks neater if you actually leave a white edge rather than trying to cut you know, on that black line. I find that makes it look messier. And when it comes to fussy cutting, Most of you probably know you don't move the scissors. You're supposed to just move the paper, and that's how you get a nice sort of crisp edge. She says as she's moving the scissors, but that's because I've got that big bit there. Keeps catching on my finger. And I'm trying to make sure I look at the camera at the same time so you guys, I'm actually on camera so you can see. There's no point filming this if you can't actually see what I'm doing. Now, I've gone a bit wide there compared to this side, but I can go back and sort that out. So what I might do is come back up here and just go round again and get a little bit closer. Like I said, it is quite forgiving when you leave a white border, and you can just go back and get that little bit closer if you want to. And then round here, I'm just going to go round there. I'm going to go up here, down and around, and I'm going to pull that bit off, but I'm going to actually just curve that edge. I think they always look better if the edges aren't sort of sharp. I can't see. I haven't. There we go. That's it. Oh, and I went off camera a bit. Sorry, guys. All right, so there is your man and boy, whoever he may be. Put my scraps away. And so now we can bring our card bits and pieces back in, and we can start sort of thinking, oh no, hang on, that's not my card pieces, that's my offcuts. Aha, these are my card pieces. And that is why, people, you put your offcuts away. All right, I'm going to zoom you out a little bit now so that you can see a bit more. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, I think we might do a little bit of big shotting. So I'm just going to check which one is the small piece, that one there. So I'm going to put that one to one side. I'm going to get Mr. Big. Oh, there he is. Oh, you always got to make so much room for Mr. Big. That's, I guess, why they call him Mr. Big. And if I bring this one back in, you can see we are going to use one of the new embossing folders, which I haven't got out yet, but luckily everything's in reach. So here we go. This is the brick wall embossing folder. Oh, I can't open it. And it's one of the new ones. Now, a few people are having problems running these new ones through their Big Shot. All I can say to you guys is have a little practice with your Big Shot. Stepping Up do sell an adapter. So if you find that nothing works and you can't get it through, then there is an adapter that you can purchase. But I found that my Big Shot, whether it's because he's old, whether because he's been well used, I actually have a way of making him work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove one of my plates. I don't want him. And then I'm going to put my DSP. Now, see this black line? How cool is that? You use that black line to line up your paper. So you get a nice straight, obviously if you line it up, image. Perfect. And so I'm going to leave it all tabs down, one plate on top, and I find it's tight, but it goes through. If I move it into view a bit better. Try not to rub the table so much. Use your muscles. Who says crafting isn't hard work? Honestly. And then when we open him up, oh, there we go. There's our brick wall. Isn't that beautiful? And then that's the sort of inny side of it. So we're going to use what I call the outies, the pokey outie bits. So we can put Mr. Big away. We don't need him now. Goodbye, Mr. Big. Thanks for coming. And now it's a matter of putting some of this together. So we'll give our black cardstock a fold. So this bit is going to stick on here, which will stick on there. And then we're going to stick this down the side. Now, if I bring my card back in, you'll see I've got a bit of texture on here. It's not pattern paper, it is cardstock, and I've used a stamp. Now, funnily enough, the stamp that I've used actually comes from High Tide, which is an oldie but a goodie. And it's this one here. This is the waves, the water texture. And we are going to use that on here to just give it, there it is, it's almost popping out, to just give it that little bit of something. Because I think it's a bit plain. It's a bit plain, it's a bit bland. And, you know, sometimes you don't have pattern paper in the colour you want. I don't actually have any old olive pattern paper because I don't like old olive. I know, I've said it out loud. It's for everyone to hear. I don't like Old Olive. Now, this stamp needs a really good clean. It's got no stickiness to it at all. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to stick it on my Versamark. And then I'm going to stick it to my block. And that will actually keep it fairly sticky until it gets washed, which will hopefully be soon. But I'm using my Versamark more than just glue. I'm actually using it to stamp that image, that pattern. So what we're going to do is we're just going to stamp, 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 stamp. And we're just going to, oh, I probably should have a bit of scrap paper, shouldn't I? Girls, where's the scrap paper? Oh, here we go. Here's a bit. This will do. All right. Should always have scrap paper. Oh my goodness, I've just realised that means I did all my blending without having something porous to keep up, to pick up all that extra ink. That's terrible. Oh well. Terrible, but we all survived. All right. So stamp, 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 stamp. And we're just going to stamp across. Like so. And I like to rotate it backwards and forwards. You don't want to over stamp it if you can help it. So turn it around again. And the Versamark is like a watermark. We're using a C stamp, but I'm talking about watermarks. But it leaves like this sort of darker version of the cardstock. Now, it works the same way if you use the Old Olive ink. You'd get a different, sort of a different colour that way. But I quite like using the Versamark. It just gives that little Versamark pad something a little bit different. And there you go. There's your sentiment. There's your, not your sentiment, your strip. Okay, so we don't need that anymore. We can put him away. And that's going to pretty much dry instantaneously. So let's bring all our pieces back together again. So the only thing we've got left to do is do our gold embossing. So you're going to want to stamp. Which stamp are we going to use? You do a great job of being a great guy. I think we'll use that one. So peel it off its little backing bit. We'll bring this C1 back in, which was stuck beautifully. And we're going to stamp our sentiment there. And so you want to bring in, okay, these are my things that I use for embossing. So you're going to want your buddy to stop all the powder from sticking to everything but where you want it to go. Now on this card, I stamped it this side. I think I'm going to swap my card around and I'm going to stamp it over here. So we'll bring the Versamark back in again. Stamp, stamp, stamp. And so I'm going to stamp him on this side like that. Then we're going to put gold embossing powder all over it, shake it off and heat set it. Now, I'm not going to do that now because I have one already prepared, ready. Here we go. Here's one I made earlier. But I did want to share one more little trick with you. So when you put your embossing buddy over your cardstock, I don't know if you can see here, but maybe if I compare it to this bit, it gives you sort of a chalk effect. See how it's sort of chalky and a bit white? It's not as dark. So I wanted to give you a quick tip, an eraser. So get an eraser and just gently go over your cardstock and just rub over. Try not to rub over your gold embossing because you'll find that it might rub the gold off, which obviously we don't want. But just go around the outside and all the way along. And what it sort of does, I think it's actually taking a layer of cardstock off. But the good thing about Stampin' Up! Paper is that it's the same colour all the way through. We don't have a white core. So when I rub it out, I just make it black again. See, look at that. Isn't that clever? So I've made it black again. I've taken that top layer off, which is obviously got white from the embossing buddy, and I've just put that on there. Beautiful, lovely. Okay, let's put this together, shall we? Now, I've got rubbings. Oh, I've got rubbings everywhere. Okay. Oh, the other thing that I forgot to tell you is you're going to need a vellum circle. You're going to need a little stitched vellum circle. I've used the, you can't really see that it's got stitching around it, but it has. I've used the second biggest circle for that one. And it's just to give it a little bit of a highlight. You know, because you can't add rhinestones to a man's card. You can't add pearls. You can't add glitter. There's so much you can't add to it that, you know, you've got to think of something. And so layers are the way to go for men's cards. You know, whether it's layers of paper, layers of cardstock, you know, different colours. But vellum, I think, is a good neutral way of adding interest to a card. All right, so we're going to add tape. I've got tear tape today because I've run out of Tombow and my delivery is coming soon. So tear tape it is, which, to be honest, I actually prefer. Tombow gets stuck everywhere. I'm not a big Tombow fan. I use it a lot because I know that it's great for like when you're trying to reposition, but I just can't stop it getting stuck to everything else. I find like everything stuck to me for weeks later. All right, so I'm just going to stick these together like so. All right, so that's that. And then we're going to come in and add a bit of tape to our old olive. One piece there. I don't think I'll do any on the top and the bottom. I think that should be long enough. So we're going to add, oh, I've missed the bin. Where you been? All right, and I'm just going to add that. Now, I'm going to try not to get my head in the way, but I can't see where that line is. All right, turn it around. Make sure he's there. Okay, because you don't want to go over the top of that border. You want it to look like it's a bit separate. All right, what else? What's next to put together? Oh, we need to sort out these little bits. Okay, so I want to stick this to vellum, and I want to stick my vellum to here, but I don't want my vellum to show the tape behind it. So we're going to work our way down for this one. So I think he needs to go there, and I think that needs to go there. So what we might do is we might add, oh, which side is the top? Which side is, okay, that's the bottom. So we're going to add a bit of tape along that edge, like so. And it's overhanging, but the good thing about tape is you can just move that. And then we're going to sort of add that strip, just with a little bit showing along the bottom there, like that. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, I do have a little bit here overhanging, but I'm just going to trim him off. Okay. So that's that. So now I want to add him here. So I think I'll foam mount him up. So let me get my little foamies. And I'm going to do one there. Couple over here. Couple of, put one on his head. Maybe one on that side and one on that side. You always get so carried away putting them on, and then you think, oh, now I've got to peel them all off. So I'm peeling them off, peeling them off. Now, some of these, some of you are saying, Chlo, stop. They're not all going to stick to that black bit. I know, but we are going to deal with that in a minute. So I'm going to put him where I want him, which I think about there. So I'm just poking that bit down there that's stuck to him. And I'm going to flip over, and I want the whole thing to be raised. So, oh no, not this bit. Hang on. This is the bit I want stuck on here. Oh, silly Chlo. We want tape on here. And then the next level of foam mount is going on the circle. Yeah. It's always good to go back and double check. So we're going to peel this off. Peel this off. We're going to work out roughly where we want our circle to go, which is that side this time. About want a bit more over there, don't I, really? Okay, about there. So all I'm going to do is stick that to the circle like that. And then what I'm going to do, because I've still got this tacky bit here, I'm going to use my embossing buddy, and I'm just going to put some powder on that. And that gets rid of that. That's no longer tacky. See? All good. And then I'm going to add foam mounts, double them up on the ones that are still showing, which is just his head. I might do one there. And then I'm going to do one there. And then I'm going to add a few foam mounts along the strip. Now remember, you can't see these because the strip's in the way, so you're not going to be able to see these through the vellum. But they're going to be there, and they're going to hold the circle in place. So I'm going to take these bits off. So stack to my finger. That one off. Turn around. Have I done that one? Nope. And that one like that. And I just realised I actually want my banner here, don't I? Not on that side. How lucky was that? I just flipped it over. Oh, that was close. All right, and so I'm going to stick that down like that. Oh, look, I've got powder everywhere. It's all over my hands. Okay, I'll just clean that off. There you go. Beautiful. So that is the card done. So all I've got to do now is peel the backing off of this. Clean up all the dust I've got everywhere. And now make sure I know which way it opens, that way. And just level him out of there. Like so. And there you go. Done. Isn't that fun? How fantastic is that? Let's clean up these last ends. So there you go. There is your, what's the stamp set called? A good man. I keep wanting to call it great guy, but that's because that's what the sentiment says. There's your good man card made. And I'll just bring in the other one, which is a slightly different colour. How fun are those? They've come up really good. Really pleased with those. All right. Well, as always, I will put all the details up on my blog so you guys can have a look with all the measurements and everything. And if there's anything that you want to purchase, you can head on over to my store at Stamping Up. And I look forward to catching up with you again very, very soon. Take care of yourselves and I'll speak to you soon. Happy crafting. Bye.